Also, Ethan Klein uplifts creators recently that do not support Palestine. For example, Lonerbox.
Oh my god!
Like this, with Destiny, who...
She doesn't know. She doesn't know anything. Like, there's a chance this person's watched any of my videos. Obviously not. No. God. Like it's basically a meme. It's like that's what I mean. It's not really. It's not actually politics. It's not actually advocacy. It's just a vibe. And that's why this person is feeling confident enough to talk about this, despite apparently not knowing about anything to do with the conflict. We're gonna look at a new Breadtuber. It seems. I don't know how new they are, but they seem to be new on my radar anyway. Ah! Jump scare. We're gonna watch a video by someone called Mika's Rhetoric, a YouTuber with 50k subscribers, talking about the H3 drama, and apparently we have an honorable box mention. Okay, new Breadtuber dropped. This was recommended to me a while ago. Let's go.
Hi everyone, it's me again, and today I am genuinely the most terrified.
Volume. That's what you are. You are low volume, my friend. It's okay.
I've ever been to ever talk about anything, ever. And I wish that was a joke, but alas, here we are. So today we're going to be talking about H3, and I'm just going to talk about my feelings, my thoughts, the complexities, where I've been, maybe I felt like I've been too complacent in certain things. I felt like I've, maybe run a little bit too much defense, and where my thoughts are now, and kind of my perception on the general audience perception, how things have changed. And yeah, everything's looking good. I look pale as hell. I think my makeup looks like Doki. I don't have a lot of notes. I just finished work. Also, obviously, because everything has to be good. These are my little, very short, just like one page, little iPad note moment. So pray for me, I guess, in advance. Links, source, way support channel, all that kind of stuff, all down below, including the link to my wonderful, beautiful patrons and members. Names on the screen. Also, while I'm at it, because...
That's a good number of patrons and members for a 50k sub channel. Well done.
This might be the end of my days anyway. I'm about to hit 50,000 subscribers. So if you could be so...
End of your days. Mate, you're... It's not that bad, okay? Chill. Don't worry about it. As someone who has been there, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's okay.
Kind as to perhaps participate in such event. That'd be really sick. That'd be really nice of you. Yeah. I never ever bring that up because I think it's weird. I think even being called a content creator is weird, especially because I work like a people job. People job. Yeah, as if I'm not a person. But anyway, you know what I mean. So yeah. Participate in the student loan paying trade, because that's where we're at.
Okay, sorry. Welcome to the we're still left wing, okay? Despite what everyone says, Sashmoth, you idiot. Get out. Take a day off, all right? Appearance, comment, you. Now, no parts of the video, I'm gonna maybe chapter it just based off of like different points, or I'm not gonna chapter it at all. I don't really know. So, I'm gonna chapter the introduction though separately. I know that I can do that much. So let's get right into the news, just like Ethan Klein's bestie, Killer Keemstar, once said. So there's a couple things. I have sort of like a layout of my time frame. Also, I'm going to do a disclaimer right away. Yeah. And
this might disappoint some people. And I think there is a lot of nuance that needs to be understood here. I have a public-facing job in the back end, okay? Plus, I am, if you don't know, which everybody does because I'm annoying, I'm a registered licensed high school teacher by trade. I don't teach right now. However, that is something I would probably like to do come like a few years, whatever. And the issue with that comes with the fact that...
Okay, just getting ahead of it. She's a high school teacher, okay? And she's doing the Ethan drama. I don't doubt Israel-Palestine's going to come up, especially if I do as well. Just a word of advice. Okay, don't worry about people hate if she ever watches this react. Don't worry about people hating you, okay, online. Because the fact is, people online will align with your position. You're generally going to find someone on the internet who thinks your thoughts speak to them, and you tell them what they want to say. You're like articulating what they want heard, what they want to say themselves, but maybe can't say it as well, or broadcast it to a large enough audience. Some people will hate you. That's okay. Don't worry. It feels pretty bizarre at first, but you'll get over it. You get used to it. You learn the process. However, if this is about H3, and I think she obviously falls on the opposite side of this drama, if you have sympathies with Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis and all that, just keep that to yourself, okay? That's my advice to this person. Just keep it to yourself, okay? Because you're going to have stop anti-Semitism on your ass like a lightning bolt. And they will email the school that you work for. Oh, no. Okay, that's just my, listen, from one creator who gets hate to another, okay?
Taking specific political
really hope she doesn't.
stances very intensely can bar me from doing that forever. And I know that sounds severe. It sounds like I'm doom posting. It sounds like I'm being selfish. And maybe to a certain degree I am. I just genuinely consider my impact as an educator and my impact as someone who can work with youth and can work with and do research and do all these things as more important to me.
1.5 would be nice. Let's see. How are the chats going? Any $10? Not even a $10. There's a few fives. Thanks, Vazaraka and Hun, for the $5 each. Thank you very much. But what?
And more valuable than necessarily my social media impact. And because of that, and this is me being very vulnerable, like this is my genuine, and I'm actually really, like I'm so sweaty already, scared about how these will reflect, okay?
Damn.
That being said, and I'm only saying that I have been supporting the Palestinian cause since last year.
Okay.
And just in general before that as well.
Yeah.
I took a course on colonialism specifically to learn about it because I was kind of confused about everything. And one of my favorite essays of all time that I've ever read is Patrick Wolf's essay on Palestine. Excellent essay. I'll see if I can link it down below, like if there's a place you can read it for free.
Patrick Wolf's essay isn't on he mentions it. I think she's referring to Settler-Colonialism, the 2006 essay, right? Where are we? What? Oh, here. Settler-Colonialism and the Elimination of the Native. This essay is it's just not good. I don't know. Fuck it. Like, there are some bits in it that like are a little bit illuminating about Israel's, especially its expansion into the West Bank, and how they talk about like how the expansions into the West Bank were not really they weren't really an total accident. Obviously, some people in the cabinet, like before the 6 Day War, most people were not thinking about going into the West Bank. Like Diane wanted to. Everyone else was like, we don't even want to fight with Jordan.
1.5 now, you greedy potato eater.
And they sent Jordan 2 messages at the very beginning of the war to tell them, like, don't fight with us. And they just kept on doing it. So and then Jordan overextended because of bad communications. And then Israel just plowed into the West Bank. And then once they were there, Diane started very passionately getting into the settler thing, and people started moving there. There weren't that most of the settlers to begin with. They went into the West Bank normally to places that they had lost in the 48 war. Like they tried to recover lost property and like that. And then after 77, especially with Menachem Begin, it becomes like a full-blown movement. But the reason it was able to function fairly quickly and fairly immediately after the war, even without government policy, was because all the institutions that they needed for it were already there. They were already being used after the 48 war, like the expropriation and the absentee property and all this kind of stuff. Like all these laws were already in place. But despite having a few eliminating aspects here and just like a broad history of the Hutus, the Tutsis, and Europe and all that, he alludes to differences between Zionism and other forms of European colonialism, like in the sense of like renaming places to Hebrew names is actually more like old biblical names rather than trying to just like, you know, like if they come from Europe, right? There's no like new Moscow, okay, or new Odessa in Israel, right? It's things like that, or the idea that it's not just like bringing the culture of a mother country into the place that you're coming from. It's a bit different from that, right? But he alludes to these differences, but he doesn't really highlight them at all. Like he still just tries to shoehorn Israel into all these other different colonialisms of Europe and America and everything else. And the problem is that this is, I think, the popularizing of the term settler colonialism. But I think colonial settling, like that whole concept, I think the first real mention of that actually came from 2006. No, not 1960s. Yeah, it came from the 60s. 60, was it 66, 7, 8? It was around that time. I can't remember the author. I wonder. Let me find it. There was a particular author. Was it this? What's the name? What the? I don't recall the name. Maybe I do. Hang on. Is it this? It's some essay by an Israeli dude where they mention the origin of it. I think the first mention of it was 66. The term colonial, but that was colonial settler. So it's from this. It's from a book called Colonial Empire, 1966. And it basically just talks about the history of colonial empires of Europe. And they talk about Portugal, they talk about Germany, they talk about France, they talk about Spain, the UK. They don't acknowledge Israel, though. And it's because, specifically, this author did not consider Israel to be settler colonial in the classical sense, because the theories in Europe that developed on settler colonialism are derivative from Marxist theory. It's derivative from like Lenin and his work on imperialism. And it's very economically focused for that reason. Like settler colonial and the colonial settler was specifically to do with mother states needing to expand in the name of capitalism, economic growth, and surplus value, and going into other countries and exploiting the resources and sending people from the nation over to do that, to exploit the region on behalf of the mother nation, which is why they saw Israel as different, because Israel didn't really do that for that reason. Like Zionists didn't go to Israel to plunder, right? There's an old joke that says, I think it goes, if you want to make a small fortune in Israel, just arrive with a large one. And then the idea was that it was actually economically costly almost, or it was economically irrational to go to Israel. Even people who started the first kibbutzim and the first towns there were like, we're not going to get a return on this for like 30 or 40 years. Like it was really people with not that much money to begin with going there because of some kind of like idea of reclaiming like part of the old homeland, or going there to just establish a presence, or going there to find safety, or going there, and especially the concept of labor Zionism, going there to build up what was basically a backwater of the Ottoman Empire. So the way Patrick Wolf summarizes this, he only really alludes to Israel, but there's one thing that he does that is just, there's a few red flags in this, but it's like the one that really f***ed me off is this one. He does the thing.
Rip Vorsh's cat Artemi died yesterday due to kidney issues.
Oh no. It's such a shame. Thanks for the $10 though, I guess. Wow. He does this. He does this little quip. So he says, settler colonialism destroys to replace. Again, the first places the Zionists settled were mostly empty in the 1880s up until like 1920-ish. Like they settled normally in empty places that they purchased and built up. Like that's the whole idea, labor Zionism. And like basically inventing a new Jewish identity, the one that was distinct from the more assimilationist, elite, urban Jewish identity of the people in Germany and France and all those places, who basically thought that the more they assimilated, the more they would get acknowledged. Quotation marks, mostly empty. Choo-choo train, if you can prove otherwise, that the Zionists initially mostly settled in parts of Palestine that were already inhabited in 1880 for the 20, 30, 40 years. Feel free to show me. Otherwise, just cope. Kill yourself? I don't know. I'm sorry. That's just true. It's true. Because I think a lot of the reasoning that people have on Zionism is that it's all very like retroactive rationalization. So when they went initially in the 1880s, there was no Balfour Declaration, okay? There was no real concept of carving out a state. Like even with Herzl, like when they went over to historic Palestine, they went largely because in the hopes that they, not really knowing exactly what would turn out of it, like the idea of a Jewish state or like a state of Jews, like they didn't really know exactly how that would pan out, because most of the campaigning that people like Herzl did was to try and talk to the Ottoman Empire, right? Because they didn't expect the Ottoman Empire to go away. When Ben Gurion moved to historic Palestine, he didn't learn Arabic, but he did learn Turkish. He spent a year learning Turkish well enough that he could go and study like in Turkish, or I think it was law. and also to try and get Jewish representation in the Ottoman political system. I think there was like in his old home, there was like a fez, right? Like, yeah. So the idea that but the problem is that people see the Nakba in 48 and they retroactively seek out a few quotes and imagine that that was always the intent. That was always the plan, was to go in there and do that, which is just false. That's not exactly what happened. He studied law in Istanbul. Okay. But yeah, the way that he does this quote, as Herzl, founding father of Zionism, observed in his allegorical manifesto/novel, if I wish to substitute a new building for an old one, I must demolish before I construct. And it's like, wow, this just sounds like Nakba, right? This just sounds like blowing up a village and replacing it with a Jewish community, right? And planting up European pine trees and stuff like that. But where's this quote come from? He incorrectly cites it. He said it's from Alt Neuland. It's not. It's from the Jewish state. But if I look the full text, I think it's on Virtual Library. If I find that quote, the Nakba was clear self-defense from an Islamic genocide. That's not true either. That's also incredibly simplified. It's not an accurate quote. It is. He says the exact words. What's the context? These prefatory remarks are merely intended as a hasty reply to the massed objections which the very words Jewish state are certain to arouse. Henceforth we shall proceed more slowly to meet further objections to and explain in detail what has been as yet only indicated, and we shall try in the interests of this pamphlet to avoid making it a dull exposition. Short aphoristic chapters will therefore best answer the purpose. If I wish to substitute a new building for an old one, I must demolish before I construct. I shall therefore keep to this natural sequence. In the first and general part 1 shall explain my ideas, remove all prejudices, determine essential political and economic conditions, and develop the plan. And then he goes on to talk about the Jewish question. He's not talking about planning to destroy Palestinian buildings. He's talking about dismantling pre-existing Jewish opinions about emancipation and argue why they're wrong and why a Jewish state is what would actually ensure survival, not assimilation. He's not saying anything about, but that this Patrick Wolf guy just grabs this to say settler-colonialism destroys to replace. Like, it's such a bad faith quote, and you cannot do this by accident. This is completely intentional. What does he also do? 2006. He also says, nice little throwback here, comparing Gaza and the West Bank to the Warsaw Ghetto. Famous. This is a year after Israel pulled out of Gaza and 1 year before the blockade, 2006. The blockade was 2007. He's calling it the Warsaw Ghetto. So this guy is a bit of a I think you're not going to learn that much about the nuances of Zionism and the Israel-Palestine conflict if you learn this about colonialism. This is a essay for that. How has this not been scrutinized in academia? No, it has. People in academia fight over this quite a lot, because the whole thing is that you can't say there's no colonialism or no settling from Zionism. That's ridiculous. Of course they settled. Of course they were colonizing to some extent. Of course they evicted people. They might not have planned in advance to do the Nakba, but they did do it, right? And they had those ideas swimming around in the back of their minds for quite a few years before they actually did it. Like, the idea of forced transfer didn't come out of nowhere. It didn't just come as a spontaneous response to military need, right? That's not how it worked. But when people try to throw it into the category of settler colonialism, especially when settler colonialism is usually understood as economic projects by capitalist powers trying to plunder nations, there's so many qualitative differences that people overlook to their peril, like to their detriment, because there's also, there's like a footnote somewhere that encapsulates it quite well, I think. Is this from, yeah. There are these historians, I think they're historians, who write this book where they basically describe Zionism as pure colonial movement, as pure colonial settlement. But then they do a footnote where they say there are caveats. They do a footnote where they say there are salient differences, which are Zionism's nature as an ethnic national rather than an economic project, the refugee status of most of the Jews who came to Palestine, the loose organization of the diaspora Jewish communities as opposed to a well-organized colonial mother country, and lastly, the ideal of the return of Zion to Zion, which is grounded in Jewish tradition. So they say it's colonialism, but all these very, very crucial things that make it fairly qualitatively different from your average European colonial project, right? But the problem is that most people, but it's pure colonialism, but all these impurities, right? It's just silly. You do gain something from looking at the settler colonial aspects of Zionism and the fact that they, again, even if it wasn't like settler colonialism and like exploiting the locals, because what they tended to do more often was they would exclude Arabs. They would exclude Arabs from working on areas that they owned. And they did that even though Arabs were willing to often work for less. So they could have exploited them, but they chose not to because they wanted that whole contiguous Jewish presence and all this kind of shit, right? It does have colonial aspects in the sense that they kind of looked down on the locals. They infantilized them. They thought they were kind of primitive and a bit shitty, right? And they also, obviously, they did buy land and tried to make contiguous state territory or like proto-state territory by moving people and by forcibly evicting people, if not by the 48 war, just blanket expelling them. So there are aspects of it, but there are a lot of qualitative differences that unfortunately, this guy, Patrick Wolf, does not acknowledge at all. The other problem with this is that, especially when he talks about Israel, is Palestinians have no role in this story. They're completely passive. So when he talks about Gaza being like the Warsaw Ghetto and being closed, even though this is pre-blockade, it's like there's absolutely no mention of any decision making from Arab leaders at all at any of this point. Like it's all just, they're just like the indigenous Palestinians here are just like a passive entity. That's it. They have no role. They have no agency. Isn't the settler colonial accusations referring to the West Bank? Ah, sheer. My sweet summer child, no. People who usually invoke the term settler colonial are saying that Israel, the entire country, is a settler colonial project. It is a settler colony, they will call it. They call it the settler colony. You're the ones who don't even want to call it Israel. They'll just call it the settler colony. And Wolf means the same. He means Israel, not the West Bank. Anyway, so yeah, that's probably why this poor person is probably not going to have the most refined understanding of the conflict if she's getting it from Patrick Wolf. Anyway,
I have the book version that has all of the different colonialism essays in it. But as such, I'm not going to dive super, super deep into the politics specifically. I've also vouched for Jewish people in my videos. I've talked about how a lot of conspiracies lead to, or fringe conspiracies lead to anti-Semitism. I talked about in detail, for example, Nerd City, and discussing how he kind of leaned into the New World Order. I've discussed, this was quite recent. I'm trying to remember who I was making a video on, because this is not really scripted. So who was I talking about that I was that those conspiracy theories were coming up? I'm also trying to edit this very minimally because I want this to be a conversation. Was I talking about Jeffree Star? Of course. Jeffree Star talking about the Illuminati and the elites in Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. And I brought in the fact that usually that's implicit of anti-Semitic stereotypes. I've talked about education and the importance of not falling into those things as a result, and the red pill movement. And
oh, sorry, shit. Wojtek and Speedy Taco, thanks for the tier 1 sub, and thanks for the $10. And Loner Unbox, thanks for 99 cents, eh? Every little bit. Okay, hang on. I'll give it a 1.25, okay? Thanks for that.
Links to anti-Semitism, and it's links to Islamophobia a lot of the time, too, to a certain degree, anti-religious sentiment as an act of evil, and vice versa, too, as in a weaponization of religion. So I just want that to be a clear stance here. Operation Olive Branch, Master Doc, also linked down below, actually, now that I bring that up. I just know that because I have such forward and bold opinions on people I talk about all the time, there's an expectation that my politics align. They do, I promise.
Which one is Operation Olive Branch? Why does that make me think of Syria? Am I thinking of something different? Stupid name for an operation. The Turkish armed forces going into Syria. Why did you throw that one in? What's that? Okay. Is there another Operation Olive Branch that I don't know about? What do they have to do with Israel and anti-Semitism? Or Operation Olive Branch is the Turks going into Syria and kicking Kurds out and moving them deeper into the country. Okay.
Publicly, I'm very cognizant of my social media footprint.
It's the name of the Arafat speech in the UN. Wait, let me just see what she's referring to. Hang on. Operation Olive Branch Master Doc. Holy shit! What am I looking at here? Oh, it's a grassroots effort. Oh, so they just used that's so funny. They used the title of a Turkish occupation of Syria for their anti-settler colonial project. Okay. Huh. Mutual aid. This is quite colorful. Bahrain medical aid, master list, donate. eSIMs for Gaza. Lebanon network for aid. Okay. Should probably find a name that's a bit less colonial, but fuck.
My internet footprint, because I just think where I can actually make a difference in my future matters. And again, maybe Mika, why do you think this way already? Because I've already run into these problems when I was doing social media and my student teaching internships. So that's why I'm saying these things in advance, okay? Now, I have the lineup of how I think this started from the inception of the podcast to now. So this will be, I guess, a chapter. I'll talk now, my disclaimer, my politics, and then whatever, okay? And if people think that I'm weak in that regard as well, I understand, honestly. And I also have like a pretty, bringing my mental health is very silly, but again, I just want to be honest, right? I have a pretty intense anxiety disorder. And the only time I've contemplated quitting the internet with like certainty was in reference to discussing Ethan Klein before. And I was treated in a way that maybe allegedly in Minecraft could be considered harassment because they were making an account where they were dedicated to like saying all this stuff about me and how evil I am. And then they were DMing people that I'd worked with on other videos that I was this horrible, evil, morally corrupt individual and all this stuff. When we talk about the inception of the podcast, it was not responded to well for a long time. And this has been discussed by many different videos at length, including... So I was watching, I always know that I'm right when I have the opposite opinion of Nicholas Diorio, because I was watching Ethan Klein's video, or the H3 podcast episode about, and I haven't watched it in like a year, so this was like shocking to see these like vast differences, different setup, different show, everything like that. Chatting in about Dan Clancy or whatever, like the CEO of Twitch, and being like, oh, Ethan's gonna get all the tankies. So,
whoa. But
I was like, man, when I'm watching it and I'm having trouble getting through it because I'm just cringing so hard, and then my bestie comes in and is like, you're slaying. I'm like, okay, so I'm right. Anyway, when the podcast came out, a lot of people criticized Ethan for being really unprofessional. There was also a lot of really famous clips that came out of there, such as Ethan Klein being like, iDubbbz, I love that you say the N-word, and then just saying the N-word a bunch of times. The clip with Joji saying that women were at the time was still doing stuff on the internet, I think, as Filthy Frank, saying that women were made to be submissive to men.
Or apes or whatever, right? Our Neanderthal cousins were probably just like crazy. So there's definitely something like in us to like conquer men, want to like conquer.
Right.
So it's, women are in a nature setting like to be conquered.
There was also the clip where Ethan...
Are these not all things that... It's funny that people bring up Ethan controversies, because I believe most of these are things that Ethan had said and done before Leftovers podcast, right? Like when Hasan and Ethan were still friends. As in, like, Ethan had done all these things and then Hasan became his friend. So was his past just not an issue, but it is now because we're not friends with him anymore? Like, they did the same with the Hasan Destiny thing as well, right? They do it as well because Hasan talks about all the CP debates and the whatever the else that Stephen has, the incest debates. But these are all things that Stephen did before Hasan became friends with him. It's so ridiculous. Like, you might as well be like, hey, me, I'm a hypocrite. I am a massive cunt hypocrite. Yeah, well done. Thank you.
Ethan Klein was talking about Jewish people in Israel and commenting on their hygiene and commenting on some things that should not have been commented on in the way that they were.
The Jews, Ashkenazi Jews were all inbred. That's why we all have all these
Really?
neurological diseases.
Holy shit.
Because back in the day, we had our little village and we fucking ran around in our little suits.
Like
and nobody wanted us, so we're like, well, other. And to be honest, there's like stinky suit where like, bro, you have to be very generous to fuck Hasidic Jew, right?
How would I know?
Yeah.
How
am I gonna say to that?
I mean,
like, Jews making fun of each other. This is one of the most like normal things. What? Again, was it an issue? Was it an issue when Ethan made that comment about Ben Shapiro going into the camps? Because I believe this was also...
I'd be remiss if I did not comment on a
Hasan
guy
Ethan
who apparently is a
was,
YouTuber
again,
and gamer of some sort.
Shut up, Ben.
Winger, so that's totally fine. Here is Ethan Klein being a delightful human being.
I was just going to say, if there's another Holocaust, if they start rounding up the Jews again, I hope Ben gets gassed first.
Well, that's nice. I have a rule generally.
This was fine. This was anti-Zionism, not anti-Semitism, just so you guys know. That was anti-Zionism, right?
Well, I've lived in Israel for 5 years, so they wear the suits, they got the hats, they don't shower nearly enough. When it's 1,000,000 degrees outside, they rock the black suit. They stink, bro. They stink. And you know they don't shave. You've seen their face. Imagine what their look like.
Wait, I always thought those were like fake.
No.
Those are real?
Those aren't extensions.
Those are real.
Those are all.
That is commitment. I guess, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it.
Their faces look so gnarly. So imagine what these dudes look naked, and they're all pretty fat, too, because that wife's at home cooking. That's all she does.
Not all fat.
Well, a lot of the ones you see are pretty chunky.
Can we get a picture?
Yeah, let's see this.
Yeah.
I'll be the judge of how hot they are.
Harry. You asked for it.
So those clips were already coming out. And then also there was criticism that the podcast was boring. I remember the episodes with just Ela and Ethan being quite boring back then, especially that the guests were kind of all that it was. So, and people were really upset that they were no longer making the H3 Productions videos, which were their most popular and most liked content to this day. Progressively, as Ethan Klein started hiring more people, you started getting kind of like a co-host dynamic almost. It's like you have now Dan, the producer, you have Ian, you have Zach. That was the crew for a long time. Circa 2020, whatever, they hired AB and Lena, who are both Lebanese, and this is going to become relevant soon. Then you also have the hiring, who were also fans of Ethan's. He hired AB because AB ran defense for him when another creator named Gokanaru made a really long, pretty okay, actually, like I remember liking it even back then, Hitpiece on Ethan Klein. And then AB ran defense for him as Starkiller with like a mask on or whatever on a video, and he hired AB and hired Lena as personal assistant. Then you get also hiring Cameron Grants, who was making memes on their subreddit a lot to do design work, hiring Sam, who used to be dating Ian to do graphic design stuff for him and set design, that kind of stuff.
Ethan is right about Hasidic Jews and the way that they're smelly. Having to sit next to one on an LL flight is the worst thing ever that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. I don't recall. She's been 12 minutes into this. So far, we're talking about how Ethan said cringe stuff, or not even, it's just edgy. It's just edgy stuff before Hasan's community took him on board and liked him and defended him for all these things. It's okay.
Then you have...
Is she acting like all these clips are revelations? Everyone knew about these clips. Like everyone... Do you think Hasan didn't know about these clips?
Of hiring of another fan, Olivia, who does writing. I'm sneering because I'm just trying to remember like what because she kind of does everything. So I'm not trying to remember her role. She seems to do research and writing stuff mostly. Okay. Then you have also the hiring of Swedish, another fan, Love, who does social media. I think that's right. Yeah. So Olivia does. Is that everybody? Now there's a new guy named Nathan or something. No idea who he is. Anyway, as they hired these people, and a lot of them being quite young, a lot of them being like Gen Z. I think Love and I are like born the same year, born a couple months apart. And I'm 24, by the way. You start having these like...
I feel like if this is a pre-recorded video, you should probably learn what you're talking about before you talk about it. Obviously, it's really cool that you can just drop the Settler-Colonialism Patrick Wolf essay, not really say anything about it, not really give any arguments about it, not give any like pros and cons of it, not scrutinize any of the content in it, and then just jump on to this and not know anything about how the different co-hosts of the podcast are involved with each other. Okay. Probably need to script this, or at least if it's prepared, it seems semi-scripted, it's prepared, it's got notes, then you should probably like edit the rambling a lot more. Yeah, I don't know.
Found, you started getting a lot more of these people who were much more progressive, politically progressive and ideologically progressive than Ethan. AB and Lena. Because Zach, so Ian doesn't say shit. Like, Ian's like hiding, okay? So we don't know about Ian. But you have, and then Dan seems to, I think Dan is very left-leaning, but Dan also doesn't respond to criticism well. So when he has maybe socially conservative, even to a certain degree, like opinions on things, and then people push back, he, like Ethan, will kind of view it as the entire left's opinion on this entire subject and then just be pushed away. And then Zach, I would say, is somewhat on the more socially conservative side. This is just how I'm gauging them. I could be completely wrong. This is a discussion again. So, but what I'm saying is that environment was pretty stable in a sort of awakened centrist / center-left vibe, right? Now, when you started hiring AB and Lena, who are Lebanese, who have been affected by a lot of these conflicts in the Middle East, even though I think they're both born in the United States, but Lena's parents, for example, were recently in Lebanon, etc. Olivia, who seems to be quite progressive and is very, ideologically and socially left-leaning. I don't know what Love's doing. He doesn't say much. Cameron also seemed to be a pretty progressive person. Sam as well. So you started having this sort of environment that was fostering these ideas more openly. And when you have your researcher, who is a...
AB and Lena were cool with Dearborn voting for Trump. Is that true? I don't recall them saying that it was okay that they voted for Trump. Can you show me that? I'm not believing that without some proof. This is 1.5. This is 1.25. What, for $10? You think I'm going to go 1.5 for $10? You guys are disgusting. What the fuck? I should have used this more often. I always forget that you have to... He defended it in your conversation. Did he defend it? I don't... Did he just say it's understandable that they're like low information voters who are mad about the war? What? Like normie. Doesn't mean... That's not defending it. Like, stop doing that. Jean-Luc Dickard, thanks for the tier 1 sub. I really appreciate that. Interesting name. They didn't seem particularly concerned and explained it was in protest. Whoa, thanks for 20 euros.
Or I will commit.
Why do you don't get to dictate the speed that you're paying for, bro? Like, what the fuck? Thanks so much, though. I really appreciate that. I'm so humbled. Okay, we're going 1.5. 2 is way too fast. 2 is insane. Anyway.
A sort of kind of left-leaning person, and AB as well was also doing research. You start to kind of, your content begins to tilt. And then you get to the debate era where Ethan Klein was debating Pearl from Just Pearly Things. He debated the guy who's claimed that he cured Tourette's. There was also the debate that he debated Fresh and...
Not nice, you people. Am I really the only Hasid listening to the streams? While some of my kin can do a better job showering, 98% of us shower every day, and we have more money than most of you. Is this just a Jew fight chat? A Jewish fighting pit?
Fit, I believe at some point there was, which I didn't watch that. I think I already checked out at that point. There was also, there were just a lot of the beginning were people I didn't really know. I think that might be why I can't remember all of them. But anyway, there was these debates, right? And then streamer Hasan Piker was reacting to them because it was the same sort of universe of content creators that he was against himself. From the debates of the Red Pill guys, where a lot of the defenses tend to have to be these kind of left-leaning ideologies, Ethan Klein presented to a more left-leaning audience. And left-leaning audiences really like to watch people get dunked on like that. I think the very first one, which involved Hasan as well, was actually talking to Aiden Ross about gambling. So now you get the show Leftovers, which ended essentially right after.
PLS can't keep up with her.
Thanks for the $20. Okay, if you say so. We'll go back to 1.25, I suppose. Money speaks. Thanks for the $5, 8-bit Sepher. Keep it up, Boxman. Appreciate it.
After the events that occurred on October 7th, which has kind of led to a lot of the downfall. But I think something that a lot of people were not considering was there was quite a few small spikes that began hitting people. And I don't want to reveal the exact comments that I found, so you can take my word for it or you can not, just because I don't even want to start getting into like any of the identities on the Snark Reddit or any of that kind of stuff, because Ethan's gonna go buck wild on that if it ever gets anywhere. I've been reading there was a post about being a fallen
I love this culture where it's okay to attack like Ethan and H3 with absolute impunity, but we have to be so protective about anyone that he responds to on his Instagram post and they get like blowback for a day. Come on. Papa Smooth, thanks for $20. Speed it up, please. I don't mind if I do. Okay, let's go 1.5. Okay.
Fan, which is what Ethan Klein refers to people who no longer like his content. I guess technically by that design, I would also be a fallen fan. But the juxtaposition that Ethan Klein often puts towards fallen fans are people who are like borderline neo-Nazis. Like these sort of people who really liked conservative content, they liked anti-SJW stuff, they really hated leftists, they whatever. That was who he used to position mainly as these like fallen fans. But now you have fallen fans that are those left-leaning people, which now Ethan Klein often refers to as extremists, which is being often quite inappropriately used. So a lot of the people brought up these other instances besides the recent, what people are referring to as the Hasan Piker crash out, which I'll get into soon.
I'm helping.
And I want to go through those events to remind people what they were, to sort of maybe place people in where they started feeling a disconnect with the content. So the first thing I could think of, which is not something that many people really brought up, and this is going to sound really crazy to come out of my mouth, but the prolapse fixation is an issue. It is. She's an issue. For one, you have the issue of, that's kind of gross. So what happened with this is it started with Howie Mandel just raw posting a prolapse on TikTok, where it was someone prolapsing through a pair of shorts or something, and he was like, what's going on? Is this COVID or something? So which it became a meme because everybody's like, Howie Mandel, the known like germaphobe or whatever, plus like just beloved TV host, just not having any idea what he's looking at. He says
Ethan, I don't recall Ethan ever being right wing though. I remember him being like part of the anti-SJW thing, but not from like a proper conservative position though. I don't think he was ever a conservative. Maybe I'm wrong. But we're going pretty far back anyway. He did what? I don't know this story. Prolapse. Okay, interesting.
He says he thought he sat on something, which I guess kind of makes sense in context because there's no other universe where Howie Mandel would just be doing that. It was like a boomer gets TikTok moment, and it was quite wholesome and funny, right? But then what ended up happening was Ethan Klein became obsessed with this and started showing this to everybody, the TikTok to everybody and stuff. But then also got involved with this sex worker named Hunger FF, who's really famous for utilizing his prolapse rear end to make content. And what he would do is he would sit people down and force them to watch this content when they were being interviewed by him. So he did it to Howie, which I guess sort of contextually makes sense. I think he might have had him do it in person, which is even worse. Then he showed, but so I mean, I guess to a certain degree you can go, yeah, that's like the joke, right? Like that was the guy who did it. But why was he showing Stavros? Why was, is that his name? I think so, that's how you pronounce it. Why is Brittany Broski have to watch this?
I just sent it. This is the video I was saying I was worried that you were going to show, and you were like, I wouldn't show that.
Why would I do that? What kind of psycho do you think I am? All right, you're not showing the screen, right, Ian?
You're just going to show me?
Yeah, well, if I show this at home, I'd be banned on all.
Well, girl, we're halfway there.
All right, so it's only a minute long. Okay? It says,
It's a minute, it's 10 seconds.
yeah. But maybe you can bail whenever you want, but it gets better towards the end. So it says, is this COVID related? Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Wait, did you not see this, Ela?
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
What?
Wait. Look. Why don't make me look at this by myself?
This, like, actually... Oh!
No, stop. You're
It's
crazy.
hairy. Oh, that's making me gag, bitch.
That's actually our friend of the show, Hunger FF.
I love Hunger, but I don't...
Why are we making Anthony Fantano see
Stop
this?
asking me if
Right?
I've seen
Why-
Corey's latest video. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. I don't know how late you're talking, okay? Just, I've seen your question. Holy shit. Just wait. Oh my God. We're in the middle of a video. Stop trying to yoink me into the next video. Sorry. It's just like, it's like a glitch in the Matrix. Like I keep seeing the fucking same black cat going. Stop. I like this edgy Ethan. You should bring him back. Was this supposed to be like coercive or some shit? Is that what we're trying to say? They were making them watch some gross stuff? Okay.
Why is this being forced? This is not comfortable content. This is not, they're not really consenting to this a lot of the time. I feel like there's definitely like a element of feeling like a coercion because of the interview space. And the crew will often push back on this as well. There's also the event, and this leans into the next thing too, which some people refer to as bottom gate, where linking to this prolapse thing too, people really felt that Ethan Klein was, how do I say this, inappropriately pushing homosexual men as inappropriate, maybe not inappropriate that he doesn't believe in it, but it was like a joke kind of, you know. And then there was this whole conversation, and I never got watched this episode because I think they started it and I got so cringed out that I just stopped watching. And this was something that I noticed was common with watching H3. A lot of people go, yeah, I couldn't finish the episode, it was like too cringe. And I'm like, well then why are we watching it, Queen? Because I watch a lot of other people, you know, I don't cringe out of their content halfway through ever. If I do, I kind of never watch them again. So what's happening with this? You know, I've never watched like a ContraPoints video, been like so icked that I need to leave, or I've never watched like a Smoky Glow video or a Megan Ann video.
Like the ContraPoints videos where she goes into like really graphic explanations of gender dysphoria or talks about being sexually assaulted and all that. Like, yeah, there's of course there's content that's going to be difficult for some people to watch and not for others. But is it like coercive to get them to? I don't know. Should he have done a content warning? He did kind of say that he couldn't show it publicly, so like he couldn't show it to the stream.
Or an Adam McIntyre video, or even like a Foodie Beauty Girl World reaction channel video, or where I've just been so icked that I need to like bounce, you know? So what happened essentially was they were talking about like tops and bottoms and that whole concept, and then the chat was pushing back, being like, hey, like this is starting to sound kind of homophobic or whatever. Dan starts yelling at them, Ethan starts yelling at them, and everybody is really like annoyed about this combativeness.
Stop with the fucking appearance. Oh my God, hang on, wait, we're doing another ban, okay? We're de-chudding. We're de-chudding the audience, okay? Let's go. We're culling the chuds. Take a nap. Dick. All right.
They were just trying to kind of push you in a right direction. So that icked out a lot of people. And I saw that on the Snark Reddit too when there was the post of like, why did you stop watching the show? A lot of people brought up that. There was also, this was a huge one. I'll get to what my end was this segment where they were talking about Cutie Cinderella, who is a streamer on Twitch, where someone made AI pornography of her, essentially a deepfake video.
Oh,
and she's
that.
crying. I also never saw this episode, thank God. I feel like I would have lost it back then. But I mean, I guess not thank God, because I ended up watching for quite a while longer.
Why? Why?
What is going on with you?
I'm sorry, don't mind me.
If you were able to look at women who are not selling themselves or benefiting off of
What is
being
going on
seen
with
sexually,
You're a monster, dude.
AB hiding his face.
you guys are crazy.
Why did you do that? Zach, what the fuck, bro?
I think people read way too much into laughter. Like sometimes people laugh when they're uncomfortable all the fucking time. But
You guys are
it's
crazy.
where's the face?
Why did you do that? Zach, what the fuck, bro?
Yep. He apologized and Cutie forgave him. Is that true? Okay. This is the only serious voice in the room, okay? The only adult in the room.
Just not being aware of like the severity of this like event, I guess, and cognitive dissonance as well that I'm not proud of. I think it was just a lot of it for me too was I didn't have anyone to help me with research at the time. Now Nor helps me, right?
But Ethan didn't do the sound effect. Someone else did. Okay.
I didn't have anybody to help me, but the show had brought into these different episodes that gave me an idea of like research.
Whatever.
So for example, like I would not use the H3 videos as research because there's a lot of inaccuracies. But let's say for example, like they were talking about for like Colleen Ballinger or whatever, they would get exclusive interviews that I was not able to get ever. They would get a lot of exclusive things that I was not able to access. They would be able to pay for things I couldn't access. So I would watch them as like a basis of like where
He
finding
messaged
things.
Zach
Kind
to
of
hit
from
it. Oh, that's a bit naughty. Damn.
there pretty often. So that was sort of what I was even telling myself at the time. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And then I obviously got to my final straw later that year. But the issue was QT Cinderella was talking about how she felt violated that these videos were being made without her consent and often being positioned as real, which is very, very fair. Then essentially what happened was Ethan messaged the sound guy, Zach, to play Anouk singing Chestnuts over it. And just to give you an idea of like how unserious this is like, I'm gonna cut the audio now because I want to get claimed. But like this is like what that video is and what it looks like, right? So it's like very silly, obviously. So then they sort of apologized for it. It was very weak and people were really not happy with it. And it actually became a meme that like it shifted into Ethan Klein kind of almost separating responsibility to a certain degree by claiming that what happens is he just gets into this like uncontrolled state he refers to as goblin mode. This also was something where he said that if there's another Holocaust, that Ben Shapiro should go first.
Oh, she mentions it.
That's what Ethan Klein said. And I
Yeah.
disavow this as a concept, obviously. So that was another event that he considered that goblin
Okay.
mode thing. So he ended up getting this like broadcasting button where Ethan could
It's interesting. So she just really genuinely didn't know that Ethan had done all these things. Then why wouldn't you? Surely she's going to ask the question: is like, why did Hasan and all of his community accept it and make a show with him? Why did they do that? Why were they fans of him for as long as they thought he was as left wing as they were? And now they only care about it as soon as they've fallen out with Ethan.
push it and it would cut the last 15 seconds, similar to like a censor button on live television. So instead of really addressing, I found the QT Cinderella stuff, he kind of boiled it down to this like goblin mode, right? Then
Does she disavow anything Hasan says? Nope, and she's right not to, because if she did, he would probably DM her and then she would kill herself. Yeah, if you want to stay on Hasan's good side, you can't really say anything.
crew members started leaving in the last year. First Cameron Grants, and then Sam. Cameron said that he received another job. He received a job offer closer to where he's from, Massachusetts, and he was moving back. And he also just really, really hated living in California. Now, obviously, you can receive when you're a public-facing figure as well, like Cameron was on the show. You can receive job offers like just randomly, right? Like via email, via whatever. I just wonder. I feel like he was applying for jobs to get that offer, because I think in the industry that he's in, you have to submit portfolios and stuff. That's just my tinfoil hat theory, though, in that regard.
Okay.
Then Sam left, and the vibe of Cameron leaving versus the vibe of Sam leaving was very different. Cameron was very apologetic. He was very sad. Sam was sort of like a moving on to better things.
You were done dirty by this Breadtuber, so bad faith. What did she do? Am I actually mentioned here? I don't know where I'm mentioned. I don't think I show up. There's no video. There's no clip, obviously. She's just going to say something, I guess. Unless it's one of these tweets. I don't know. We'll see when it comes. Who knows?
Because she
Who
began
knows?
working for QT Cinderella. And in that QT Cinderella clip of the chestnuts thing, and maybe I'll have the image on screen or I'll play the clip or whatever, Sam is visibly extremely upset at Ethan while this is happening. It appears recently that Sam has moved across the country, presumably back to Georgia. So I don't know if she's still working with QT Cinderella. She might just be done with the whole California thing in general, especially because her and Ian broke up. So I think she just kind of wants to leave. But I wonder about that too. Then you get to the Hasan videos. So what it began from was Ethan Klein started posting Instagram stories with Hasan clips claiming that he is platforming anti-Semitism, Hasan specifically. Now, a big focus of Hasan's content is being very pro-Palestinian. And this is something that Hasan has been doing for years and years and years. He says it's about 10 years of public advocacy. Now, you can say what you want about Hasan, you can say what you want about Ethan.
10 years of public advocacy. Remember that. Remember 10 years of expert knowledge. 10 years of advocating for the Middle East. 10 whole freaking years, bro.
I don't know which is which.
Which is
dude.
Yemen. Find it, Hasan.
Close the cookies. Oh yeah, true. Doesn't know where Yemen is. Okay, I'm gonna click close. I'm closing it.
10
I'm
years.
Closing it.
10 years of advocacy.
I think.
Come on.
No.
Oh shit. Oh no. Oh no.
No.
Damn, there's 10 years. Damn.
No.
Wait, so we all have blind spots, okay? You can learn for 10 years and start with fucking Iran, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Israel. You clicked fucking Israel.
Nope. Got it.
Got it.
One of
Saudi.
these.
Okay, come on, Saudi. You can do that. Okay. Wait, where's the clip there? Okay. 10 years, bro. 10 years. 10 solid, stinking years.
And I personally like the secret third option, Sam Cedar. I'm a Sam Cedar stan, I fear. Has he ever done wrong? I don't know. Tell it to your mom. I don't care. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But I do actually, I love Sam Cedar. Anyway, that's my secret third option. People are like, oh, it's Hasan or Ethan. I'm like, Sam Cedar. Anyway, so he starts talking about how Hasan's essentially platforming anti-Semitism on the Twitch platform. I think a lot of this stemming from Frogan being his mod. Somebody who Ethan Klein hates because Frogan was tweeting about October 7th. Ethan Klein disagreed with a lot of her takes. He unfollowed Frogan. Frogan noticed and talked about it in Discord. And essentially said that she would like to support Zionism if that means Ethan
Say
Klein.
what takes. Say what takes. 10 years. 10 years of advocacy, bro. 10 years. 10 whole smacking years. 10 years. Maybe it was 8 years. Maybe he started in 2017. Okay. How are we going to summarize what Frogan did?
I would follow her back. So he starts talking about how Hasan's essentially platforming anti-Semitism on the Twitch platform. I think a lot of this stemming from Frogan being his mod. Somebody who Ethan Klein hates because Frogan was tweeting about October 7th. Ethan Klein disagreed with a lot of her takes. He unfollowed Frogan. Frogan noticed and talked about it in Discord. And essentially said that she would like to support Zionism if that means Ethan Klein would follow her back. As these sort of progress, you get into what people have been referring to as the Instagram
Okay, so
story.
she gets specific about that part, but not about what Frogan was actually saying. Okay.
Crash out. This has been something that a lot of people have DM'd me wanting to know about. And I've talked about it in private with people, like with text messages and stuff, because some of them have just been so heinous that I'm just like absolutely caught aback by this thing's like the existence of these posts. So one thing he focuses on is this one Yemeni
Curse upon the
teenager
Jews.
that Hasan interviewed, who Hasan claims is not a Houthi, who Ethan claims is a Houthi, and then Ethan pulls up all these different posts and stuff, and then
Who
claims
Hasan
that
introduced as a Houthi? Yeah, okay.
all these the Yemeni kids are Houthi and Houthi people hate Jews and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of nuances to
Yeah.
that. Obviously, there's a lot of nuances to the Yemeni teenager as well. I don't want to really get into that because I think that would take a lot more digging than this conversation I want to have is requiring, and I think is something that I want you to be able to discern on your own. But there ends up just being more posts, right? So Ethan Klein does this show where he condemns this episode where he condemns Hasan, talks about all this proof that he has that he platforms anti-Semitism, and then starts saying many Jewish friends and family. I'll have this picture on screen too, obviously. Many Jewish friends and family have reached out to thank me for the show today. I want to thank them for their kind words.
Are we going to get into the meat of any of these arguments, or just conveniently skip over all of the problematic parts of?
Encourage you guys to please check in on your Jewish friends. I think you'll be surprised at the amount of anxiety, fear, and isolation they're experiencing, and how genuinely happy they are that you ask. Cheers and thanks you guys for watching. So a huge premise of this Hasan episode 2 was something that I was very frustrated when I was looking at.
Does it really matter if he's a Houthi or not? Apparently it does, because Hasan gets really butthurt now when you say he's a Houthi. Yeah, of course it fucking matters, you stupid. Why would it not matter if someone is part of an international terror organization or not that is attacking ships in the fucking Red Sea in international waters and kidnapping sailors for over a year? Yeah, it probably does matter whether or not he's part of an organization that fucking steals humanitarian aid, allows its own people to fucking starve, kidnaps aid workers to the point that the UN doesn't even really want to send aid into Yemen because they literally can't have any fucking mechanism in place to get the aid to the people who need it because the Houthis are stealing aid and kidnapping people. Yeah, it probably matters to know whether or not this guy is actually part of an organization that hates the Jews so much that they mentioned them twice in their slogan. Aren't the Houthis just the government of Yemen right now? Thank you so much for asking me that as a question. Choo Choo Train? No, they're not. No, they're not. They're an insurgent group. They control about 2/3 of the people in Yemen. They're overseeing 2/3 of the people. But no, they're not the legitimate government of Yemen. They're not recognized by the international community as the government of Yemen. They're not even trying to partition the area of Yemen that they're part of. There's a legitimate government of Yemen that fights with the Houthis. The Houthis were a fucking uprising that allied with Saleh, the guy who got kicked out of Yemen, the illegitimate leader who got kicked, the president who got fucking deposed in the Arab Spring, returned to Yemen, joined forces with the Houthis to conquer Sana'a in 2014. So if you call like cooing half the 2/3 of the country or 2/3 of the population being the government, no, they're not the government of Yemen, no. And also doing it with Iranian weapons and Iranian funds on behalf of an imperial Islamic redemptionist fundamentalist force. Yeah, I don't even know. Like at least Hezbollah got a few people into parliament, but I don't even know if the Houthis did that. But yeah, I appreciate you asking me that like it was a question. That's good. Appreciate it.
Where
maybe that might change your position on whether or not it matters that this kid was a Houthi. I mean, he was a Houthi sympathizer, and Hasan glazed the Houthis in that interview. So, and Hasan interviewed him thinking he was a Houthi. So, okay.
Claims that Ethan Klein kind of hinges on is...
Oh yeah, they did bring back slavery as well, didn't they? They brought back slavery in Yemen, like slaves. Like people fleeing conflicts in Africa would end up in Yemen, some of them, and the Houthis would enslave them. And persecuting the shit out of minorities, Christian, whatever remaining Yemeni Jews, Baha'is, and the slavery. Oh yeah, let's forget the slavery. Child soldiers, like a lot of them.
that anti-Semitism is something that is accepted in society, but all other forms of racism are not. So there's three main aspects here. For one, Ethan Klein claims that 90% of Jews are Zionists. Secondly, they claim that using the word term Zionist is in turn anti-Semitic. So these two things end up being linked, right? Tertiarily, there's the claim of anti-Semitism being the worst and being the highest rise and being whatever. Now, obviously, anti-Semitism
The problem is the glazing, not just the talk. News organizations talk to horrible people all the time. Yeah, if you had an interview, that would have been fine. The problem is that it wasn't an interview. It was a glaze off, yeah. Where he sounded like he had the energy of a couple of fucking teenagers on a prank call. How many questions were about fucking food? Like 3? Yeah. But you can interview fucking Sinwar if you want, or the Ayatollah. But if you glaze him in the interview, people are going to challenge that, yeah.
As a concept is very ingrained into Western culture and in cultures around the world, which is really, really obviously evil and unfortunate and tragic, right? And again, I've talked about this when I talk about fringe conspiracy theories, I talk about right-wing politics, I talk about the red pill, I talk about all that kind of stuff. So I've demonstrated that as a fact in the conversations I've had before. The thing is, and this was the same argument I had with somebody in my personal life last Christmas, was sure, yes, but do you also think being Arab in America is a cakewalk? I think this is a nuance that's missing in most of Ethan Klein's conversations. And when we talk about these types of things and these differences, I bring up a Bill Maher video. My best friend, who I definitely don't want to play Minecraft with, Bill Maher. Bill Maher did a video, and I'm going to look up right now on my computer as I'm saying this, what year this was. Because I just saw it on Twitter recently. What was it called? So this was a video from, 11 months ago. Oh my God.
What did Ethan say about being Arab in America as a cakewalk? I don't think he did. Again, it's just because he's fighting with, because again, these people think that because you're if you're like an Arab or a Muslim or anything like that, like you have to be treated like with the softest of kid gloves because you're just basically a toddler who can't defend themselves and can't advocate for themselves. And if you are an Arab creator who starts to fight with someone on the internet, you can't hit back because they're poor defenseless fucking Arab subject of colonialism, whatever. Yeah, like it's infantilizing anyway. Ethan's not a Bill Maher fan. What the fuck?
I lied. Well, I didn't lie. Bill Maher posted it on his YouTube channel 11 months ago. So he's still co-signed. Okay, so this is still fully co-signed. It is called the Muslim Dior Fashion Show, which is clipped from the But I'm Not Wrong HBO stand-up comedy special. Now, I'm not going to link it because I hate Bill Maher. And I'm also not going to
platform him.
I don't want anybody to really look at it. And I can't clip it because I'm going to get claimed by HBO. But all I'm going to do is just put a still image on the screen. This flew and didn't only fly, was incredibly successful. This is a representation in the media on HBO of mocking hijabi women. If you wear burqas and all that kind of stuff, right? Being Muslim, a big part of it too, right? Because Bill Maher's whole shtick is the zero IQ take of if you believe in a religion, you're an idiot. Despite the fact that all of my arguments as Bill Maher hinge on the exact same structural conceptual frameworks, and I've never had an original thought in my life. But my father-in-law's gonna watch this and I'm gonna have a really bad Christmas. Anyway, there is even a line where essentially a girl shows her ankles, like, because they're also all too short, which is besides the point. And then he, like, makes a joke about how she'll, like, be unalived, if you will, right? These representations can exist in American media and be openly accepted.
Does Ethan even agree with Bill Maher? No. I think Ethan once called Ramallah a terrorist city. I can't remember where the clip is, but he did. I'm pretty sure he said that. That's probably a pretty shitty thing to say. I don't know if it was referring to the second Intifada, to the two guys who got lost and they got lynched and shit, but I don't know. But no, generally speaking, I don't think he humors any like Islamophobia generally.
Known people in my personal life that are from like rural areas that will see a person who is a hijabi, for example, and then be worried that they're going to be unalived by them.
We're not showing what we're talking about, just doing Hassan-style summary? Okay, fuck me, Ethan. Ramallah. Because Ramallah is not really, you wouldn't call Ramallah a terrorist city. You would call, maybe Jenin, because even the PA calls them that now. And even then, it's just the camp, generally. Oh, is it this? Is this the Ariana person clipping it? Okay.
Make a mission with them
Mm-hmm.
to like a terrorist city.
Yeah.
That was kind of a crazy story.
Yeah, my officers and like the soldiers in that brigade, they would go every night on a raid,
right,
in Ramallah to arrest terrorists, and so I always saw them preparing for it and leaving, and then I would stay in the base. So one time I wanted to go with them just to experience it.
Why, you just were all of a sudden had an urge to go with them?
I just wanted to see what it's like.
Right.
I wanted to see it.
Okay.
So they took me with them one night, even though they weren't supposed to.
Did they armor your ass up?
You're driving in this like Jeep that's bulletproof.
Right.
She didn't call it a terrorist city, and he just kind of said it like a passing comment. I don't think he was making a particular judgment on Ramallah. I don't think he even knew anything about Ramallah when he was saying this. Oh well. Yeah, cook as a fuck. Okay.
So I was in the Jeep.
Yeah, this is
and
probably
then,
not. You probably need a bit more than this. You're going to call Ethan an Islamophobe.
As soon as we entered Ramallah, the people in the city started shooting us.
Wow.
And I heard like a bullet hit the Jeep like right next to my head.
Did it like dent or just
No,
you
you
heard
just hear it.
It's a gnarly armored Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I mean, it was just interesting.
They were so someone actually was shooting the car when you went in there right away.
Yeah.
Huh. Did you have a gun on you?
I didn't.
You were not supposed to leave.
No, yeah, not really. But even if I walked with them to one house.
Okay.
I did get out of the car once, but surrounded.
Again, the
with
reason people have a problem with this is because they think the average IDF raid into the West Bank is just where they go into a random house, kill some civilians, and kidnap some other ones, put them in administrative detention, and then just go home. Like, that's probably what they think a raid is. They have no idea. Like,
Okay. Did they arrest anyone that night?
They did.
Did they bring it in the same car with you?
No.
Oh,
You
different
go.
car.
There's a few cars going.
Damn, that's crazy. Was it like? How did you feel? Was it horrifying?
It was strange. Very, very weird.
How so?
is this Fauda? This is close to Fauda, yeah.
I don't know. Just you see people in the house, and then it's like the soldiers just walk into the house and look through their shit and find guns, and the whole thing is really surreal.
1.4 billion plus people in a genocidal death cult is a bit problematic. Okay, okay. Where are we? Goodbye, Cheech Wizard. Again, like, there's the difference between not liking a religion and being just like a bigot. Okay. Bye-bye.
Via like extremist terrorist tactics. I'm not going to get into that because I think it's just so heinous to even discuss. Islamophobia is so intensely ingrained in especially post 9/11 North American culture, but also Western culture, that I just genuinely don't understand the cognitive dissonance. Ethan Klein also goes off about this FBI statistic about hate crimes to certain marginalized groups, putting all these statistics to be like the Jewish struggle is the undermined one. When media representations like this can exist, like all of George Bush's presidency can exist, the sentiments towards people from the Middle East still exist. And I just think that there's a dissonance there. And that dissonance is the main point of frustration with that audience. Because it's one thing for Ethan Klein to go, I don't like Benjamin Netanyahu, I don't like what's going on in Palestine, I don't like any of this. But to then, every other statement is an argument against the people who support it because of the 10% of things you don't agree on.
To be fair, he argues with people who support Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. It's not like he doesn't argue with people who dislike Netanyahu and think there are war crimes and want to condemn fucking like the Israeli fucking military actions. He doesn't. Okay.
You openly attack pro-Palestinian creators on a regular basis. Demand that their sponsors be taken away, demand that their revenue be taken away, demand their platform.
True, radical Islam doesn't exist, it's all in your head. Kwasi, what the fuck are you referring to? I banned someone who said it was 1.4 billion people in a genocidal death cult. I don't know if you've realized the issue, right? But most Muslim countries are not sending people to go and fight with Israel, right? Why? Why do you think that's the case? What, like, if they were all part of a genocidal death cult, why aren't they all doing it? Actually, a lot of these more conservative, like Sunni Arab states, really don't like the genocidal death cult of like fucking Iran and shit like that. So, Jesus.
Platform be taken away. The actions aren't aligning properly. Because I think the biggest issue is, Ethan Klein often talks about the eradication of the Jewish people being an ideology of the Houthi, of Hezbollah, whatever. Which again, are instances of that being true, yes. But doesn't seem to also...
Let's go back here. Okay, there's the
you
crux of the
openly
argument.
attack pro-Palestinian creators on a regular basis.
Okay.
Demand that their sponsors be taken away, demand that their revenue be taken away, demand their platform be taken away. The actions aren't aligning properly.
Oh.
Because I think the biggest issue is, Ethan Klein often talks about the eradication of the Jewish people being an ideology of the Houthi, of Hezbollah, whatever.
Yeah.
Which again, are instances of that being true, yes. But doesn't seem to also acknowledge that...
Which again, what is that being true? So she acknowledges it, okay.
Which again, are instances of that being true. Yes.
There are instances of it being true. Okay. That's more than I'd expect, to be honest.
But doesn't seem to also acknowledge that it is not right for the preservation of Israel to come at the cost of other people.
Okay.
Because he always says they want 8 million Jewish
Which,
people to be
again, I don't think... Okay.
displaced from Israel. And then that's the biggest issue, which again, I don't think is a lot of the arguments a lot of people have. Are there, of course, people who are anti-Semitic on the left that are saying yes, but also that doesn't mean that your arguments, your absolute arguments are correct either. You see what I'm saying? That there is, to a certain degree, a nuance to these things. And a nuance that I'm so scared of, that I'm not relaying properly. But the preservation of the Jewish people in Israel should not be coming at the cost of Palestinians. Shouldn't be coming at the cost of Lebanese people. Shouldn't be coming at the cost of Yemeni people. And that's the main point the audience isn't liking.
What does she think they're doing to... What do you think they were doing to Yemen before the Houthis? What? It's so stupid. I don't know why. Like, why you just read this one stupid fucking essay by Patrick Wolf? Obviously, reading that by a very partisan shithead who's just basically talking in abstract theory the whole time. What the fuck did Israel do to Yemen, bro? What the fuck? Israel attacked Yemen after the Houthis attacked Israel, not before. Okay.
Because Ethan seems to be pushing the contrary. And you can add in your little anecdote that you don't like it, but when everything else surrounding it seems to not relate, that's why people are feeling the way that they're feeling. Ethan Klein requests nuance for his takes, but asserts his own opinions on others. For example, the Twitch panel with the Love Sabra category, talking about the Habibi pass.
Oh no.
This is a joke that can be taken too far. It is also a joke that I've seen in other contexts. Hasan brought up a tier list of having, for example, with Black Americans, who's invited to the cookout versus something like people who make box mac and cheese or something. I can't remember the analogy, but anyway. Also, Ethan Klein uplifts creators recently that do not support Palestine. For example, Lonerbox.
Oh my God.
Like this with Destiny, who literally debated Norman Finkelstein on the fact that the genocide is okay. And I'm going to have a little bit of censoring because I want the video to have reach.
Of course, I was going to expect a lot more elaboration or a clip or something, but okay. Oh, whoa, there it is. Let's go. What a piece of shit. What the fuck, man? Like, why? Like, contend with something. Bro, what? You're coming in here being like, oh, I read an essay about settler-colonialism from 2006 by a guy who clip chimps, literally fucking quotes out of context, and compares Gaza and the West Bank to the Warsaw Ghetto in 06. But I'm about to act as if Israel is trying to fucking exist at the expense of Yemen. Like, that's how that happened. That's why Israel attacks Yemen. Like, apparently just 1,000 miles away. It couldn't possibly be because Yemen was like attacking ships and firing rockets over at Israel, all right? It couldn't possibly, that's why Israel attacks the Houthis in Yemen. She doesn't know shit. She doesn't know anything. Like, you think there's a chance this person's watched any of my fucking videos? Obviously not, no. God. But because I hung out with Destiny, who debated Finkelstein, who, by the way, Finkelstein supports a two-state solution, you idiot. Like, if you bother to listen to anything Finkelstein says on substance, Finkelstein's a two-stater, which would be enough for half of Hasan's community to fucking hate him. But, you know, cringe. Being so closely tied to a creator who's on camera saying genocide is acceptable is going to lead people thinking you share his views. Yeah, I know, and those people are idiots, yeah. Even if you argue with them on that specific point, which wasn't even an advocacy for genocide, but okay, well, whatever. Yes, I understand. Thank you, Bad Monkey. I understand that people on the internet are idiots. Yes, I understand that the internet's full of crazy people. That's not the problem, though. No one cares about, like, people. The problem is not, it's the same with Ethan. What did Ethan ever say that was so bad before they all fell out with him? The problem is that these people see it all as just some kind of self-aggrandizing moral narrative and moral, like, signal. And then because it's all narrative, because it's all just a collection of bullet points that they read out of a fucking pamphlet by propagandists who generally support terrorism, then, yeah, if anyone steps outside of the narrative, that's it. That's a problem. I feel like Finkelstein's positions are incoherent. No, they're not. They're not incoherent at all. They're incoherent to a logical person, but again, not to someone who's trying to spread a narrative, okay? So Finkelstein is a two-stater who doesn't support a full right of return, okay? Because he's Mr. International Law, right? But to him, he's also a demagogue. He is a firebrand who shits on Israel and lies constantly about Israeli conduct and always takes the most bad faith interpretation of like everything like sympathetic to Israel, right? But it's not, there is a consistency there. The consistency is that he's built up an audience. He has built up an audience of pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah, one state, fucking full right of return, destroy Israel wankers. And he disagrees with them. But if you notice, Finkelstein doesn't talk about two states anymore. Finkelstein doesn't talk about two states anymore. He still believes it. I can show you him still believing it when he was at that protest, right? When he was trying to tell them not to say, no, not this one. This is another one. When he was trying to tell them not to say river to the sea, Palestine will be free, he was saying Palestinians will be free.
This notion that I don't agree with the slogan. I'm going to be candid with you, and I don't make any claim to infallibility. I'm simply stating, based on my long experience in politics, I don't agree with the slogan, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. It's very easy to amend and just say, from the river to the sea, Palestinians will be free. And that simple amendment, that little amendment,
that's because shut up, I don't fucking care. Solution. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we know. Yeah, interpretation. Wow, good. Wow, great analysis. Fucking idiot. Hey, you're kind of God, he's such a yapper. Why do you watch this guy? The two-state solution without full right of return. He's still going.
But when I was hearing that this slogan causes pain, anguish, the IDF. It is a genocidal moment, a genocidal state. It doesn't seem as provocative. We suppose more offensive part than the about that slogan. Even though, as I said, I disagree with it. But that's a separate matter. Because we have legitimized this notion that hurt feelings are hindered, untrammeled freedom of...
This is what his neighbors were talking. Where is the...
Two reasons. Number one, no radical movement can make any kind of
I don't think I would... Where does he recommend the change? Oh my God. He tries to amend this fucking phrase. And it doesn't work because the audio is so shit. 29 minutes? 20, is he talking here?
No, the movement, from the river to the sea. I remember in the 1970s, one of the slogans was, everybody should know we support the PLO, which was not an easy slogan to shout on Fifth Avenue in the 1970s. I do vividly recall looking at the rooftops and waiting for the sniper to dispatch me to eternity at an early age. However, there's a very big difference when you're essentially a political cult and you can shout any slogan that you like because you have the river to the sea, Palestine. And I don't make any claim to infallibility. I'm simply stating, based on my long experience in politics, I don't agree with the slogan, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. It's very easy to amend and just say, from the river to the sea, Palestinians will be free.
Yeah, when he says that, you should change it to Palestinians will be free. When he's trying to say that, he's saying that he supports a two-state solution. And he doesn't want a full right of return. You can show that as well, like in the... Because he's talking about two states. He is a two-stater. He's a two-state solutioner, right? And he doesn't talk about that because he knows that his rhetoric and his firebrand dogma analysis basically results in him cultivating an audience that would hate him for this. So at the end of this thing, they ignore him and they just go back to saying, river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And the funny thing is people are saying, oh, Finkelstein's not on your side. It's like, I know you think that. He's not on my side, right? He's not on my side at all. But he's a Zionist. Like he thinks Israel has a right to exist under international law because it does. He's an international law guy. And this is why he says this. That's why he says, don't say Palestine will be free, say Palestinians will be free, because that is compatible with the two-state solution, which he's advocated for his whole life. And again, that's the point. Like, no one cares about policy. Finkelstein doesn't care about policy. He doesn't care about what he wants to actually happen on the ground. He wants to basically keep his audience. So it's so ironic that he gets so much more attention now than he's ever had in his life. But just as he gets all this attention, he has to basically keep that attention by sacrificing any actual concrete advocacy, which is why he doesn't advocate for anything anymore. He just cries and soys and acts like fucking Lord Denethor writing the obituary before Palestine's even dead. So really that solution, two states with not a full right of return, that's also the position of destiny. It's also the position of Ethan Klein. It's also the position of me. We might argue over Jerusalem and the right of return and Temple Mount and all that, but ultimately, like, his policy advocacy for the final settlement between Israel and Palestine is more in line with me, Ethan, and Destiny than it is with Hasan. But again, no one cares about what you actually want. No one cares about your what you want to happen in this conflict. They just care about the narrative. Can you deliver the narrative? Can you are you part of this self-aggrandizing moral story, or are you not? Like, it's basically a meme. It's like, that's what I mean. It's not actually politics. It's not actually advocacy. It's just a vibe. That's why people think that Finkelstein is on their side, even though his advocacy for a final settlement is closer to mine, right? And that's why this person is feeling confident enough to talk about this, despite apparently not knowing dick about anything to do with the conflict.
On the fact that the genocide is okay. And I'm going to have a little bit of censoring because I want the video to have reach and not get age restricted. But they're just contrary to each other, right? Lonerbox specifically pissed me off because, for example, and this is a clip that was circulating as well, Lena, AB, and Olivia ask about aid. They ask about the civilians. And Lonerbox just keeps going, well, I'm not understanding your question. And then just dancing around it. Because he doesn't have an answer. Because it's morally reprehensible.
Oh my God, you disgusting piece of shit. What was the question they were asking that I think they were asking about Palestinian resistance, like during the invasion or something. I was like, are you asking about whether or not Gazans should fight with the IDF even if they're not in Hamas? I spoke about aid. I spoke about civilians. Hang on. Let's find this question and see how easy it was to understand. Oh God, this person's never having a conversation. There's no point. Oh God. Oh well. That's okay though. Don't show any clips, don't irresponsibly platform. What was the question? Probably matters what the question was. This was when they were like, why can't they just target the terrorists and not have any civilians die? I'm like, sorry if I'm dealing with, should I have just said that's a retarded question? Fuck off and come and like read one thing before talking. Should I have said that? Should I behave like that with someone I've just met for the first time and it's just like when I'm a guest on a show? Should I have said that? Would that have been more clear? Like, what the fuck? Only is like, I don't even know where this is in the transcript. Is it this?
What other option? Well, it's going to happen basically, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yeah.
Like, how do we
Obviously,
move forward?
shouldn't.
It shouldn't happen. We don't condone of it, but.
And especially if you want to send aid there and people are scared that the aid will go to Hamas, which is, I understand, obviously, like there is a threat there. But if you fear that it'll be going to the terrorists, what do you do to supply aid to the innocent civilians who have been dying and are dying?
As far as I know, with international law, at least, like if you're the occupying power, you have to make sure that aid can get in. I think the American government, I don't know if you know, recently there was like a measure that was taken in October for 2 weeks where Israel basically, the IDF, this is about the blockage and the American pressure. You've got 30 days. That even if it might go to Hamas, you're supposed to let aid through. Okay, so I did answer a question about aid. Was there just one time where I said, I'm not understanding your question, and asked them to clarify? Like, what a disgusting prick. Why? The fact that she started this video like, oh, I'm so scared I'm going to get attacked and all that. Meanwhile, I'm just going to straw man the shit out of people I disagree with and not even show any evidence of it. But also, please don't react to me online and say mean things about it. Like, fuck off.
There's also the concept of grouping Jewish people with Zionism that many people have pointed out in itself can be deemed as anti-Semitic. I think Ethan Klein has openly attacked anti-Semitic.
She was talking about what American supporters should do. But then I said that like American pressure helps to push Israel to allow aid in when they otherwise weren't, right? Like or to push more aid in. It seemed like every time Biden said something public about aid, the number of trucks going into Gaza went up. Like, even if they didn't have anyone that could distribute them. That's why you constantly see from Kogat, like, oh yeah, we have like 800 trucks on the Gazan side of the border waiting for collection. Next day, yeah, we've got about 770 trucks. Okay, next day, we've got about 769 trucks waiting. Yeah, like that's what happened. They put more trucks in when, like, so that's what I was saying. Okay, whatever.
Anti-Zionist Jewish people, such as someone who was hosting or who was on Hasan's stream. He also says that it's really it's giving gaslighting and it's really demeaning for people to suggest that Ethan Klein talks to a Jewish person. It's because you keep saying when people criticize you that they don't understand because they're not Jewish. So then they go, okay, well then talk to a Jewish person. There are anti-Zionist Jews, Sam Cedar. And he won't do it.
Do you acknowledge that they are the minority? Oh yeah, I wonder... Talk to Sam Cedar about Zionism. Banger.
So it's like you're just constantly saying all I want.
I'm sorry, like I don't hate that. Like that Lena and Olivia person, like it was fine. Like talking to and AB as well. Like I'm okay to take. Like I think they were literally asking me to like solve the entire conflict. It's like it says tall order, but I mean whatever. I didn't even know Gaza was going to come up. I thought because Ethan wanted to talk about left-wing anti-Semitism, so I didn't even really do that much digging on the war. At least or like refreshing, but you know. At least we knew some things. But like that cherry picking, what the fuck? I can't even find the timestamp in that video. Does this person have a Twitter? I don't even know why am I even contemplating this? Why am I contemplating talking to this person? There's no fucking way. Like, okay, never mind.
Essentially, relaying, it's like all you want to do is complain. And all you want to do is just be agreed with. Which I guess to a certain degree everybody wants. I just think that's as much of the politics as I can get into.
Wow. I know that after all that deep diving, that's all the politics we can get into when we're just strawmanning people, vaguely alluding, oh, we mentioned one essay, but didn't actually say anything about it, just that it's called Settler-Colonialism, and that feels good to say. Sorry, guys, after that deep dive, whoa, after that intense research and hard journalism and all that nuance, let's get back to the surface, to the vibes.
Things have clearly been going badly. And people have also been joking a lot about how Ethan Klein, like, enemies have begun to, like, supersede him. And this has continued on the Instagram crash out, and I have screenshots for that, too. Such as Trisha Paytas going on SNL, and apparently Broadway? I'm not sure about the Broadway one, like, how the logistics of that whole thing. Hasan also did a speech about Israel and Palestine at Cambridge University. And talking about Trisha... People have been claiming that Ethan Klein has made the segment about him, saying that he thinks it's really bad that the stories often being posted where Trisha Paytas, his ex-podcast host, said he cut off his arm if she ended up on SNL, and now he's got to cut off his arm. So people have been talking about how Ethan Klein is essentially like miserable and pandering and whining and whatever. So he started weirdly posting on his Instagram story just stuff like, everything is pointless. About to enter my Joker era. And then has this as his gotcha, which has seemed to have been the vibe of a lot of recent months. Psych spelt wrong. Bitch, I'm glowing. Again, reminiscent of the vibe that there's a deep insecurity and fear. And Ethan Klein also revealed that the revenue from November had gone down 10% from the previous, was their lowest month by 10% or whatever since this year for the podcast. Now, I don't think people realize how serious that is.
What's she talking about? Well, we're outside of the research deep dive right now. We're outside of the research deep dive. We're like, Lonerbox said at one point that he didn't understand a question, even though he answered other questions about aid, and probably said more about aid in that single conversation than I have in my brain and have accumulated in my head for my entire fucking life. Okay. Despite that, I'm still going to say that he just basically supports like a lack of aid and targeting civilians or whatever the fuck else. She's went to straw man because I've associated with Destiny and he argued with Finkelstein. And apparently in that Finkelstein debate, he said genocide was okay. Okay. Nice one. Yeah. After getting out of that research, after getting out of that like cave, now we're back to the regular old good honest politics, good honest vibes.
That is because it's November. Last month I made 3 videos, I think. Not a lot of videos. We did not make a lot of videos in November. I was tired. I transitioned jobs very, very late October. So I made one on October 28th, 1, 2, 3, 4 videos in
Lonerbox is best buddies with someone who supports Willie Mack, who supports Elon Musk. You guys don't, like, I don't know why. Stop trying to do these insults. They don't matter. They're so useless. Sorry, you're never going to see me glazing a terrorist. I'm sorry, that's it. Like, get over it. You're never going to see me glazing a terrorist. Or saying, or for all the clips that go out about me that are apparently me justifying like murdering kids in Gaza or whatever, for the amount of fucking mental gymnastics and bad faith that people have to dig through my fucking VODs for to try and find, mate, you are never going to find me saying, oh yeah, there are settler babies after someone's just described settlers as military targets, right? Yeah, you're never going to find that.
November. I made double what I made most months in November. And obviously I had a video get over 100,000 views, which is pretty base and epic. Thank you for that, by the way. So that obviously helped. But double is not proportionate. So if your revenue is lower in November, that means it's going to be exponentially lower come January. November should never be your worst month. November and December, you should be juicing on nothing. I'm also, again, just the 2 videos I've put out this month, 2 videos.
Is Willie even an Elon fan? I don't think he is. I think they were just trolling. But I was too. That response was all trolling. Oh, god damn it. Okay, sorry. For the millionth time, if you don't like someone, comment on something other than their fucking appearances, please. Like, this person has not made any personal attacks. If someone starts making personal attacks about like looks or fucking anything else, like personal, then go for it. But she hasn't done that yet, okay? That's not how that works.
Maybe she would be willing to listen. You never know. If you reach out privately and kindly when she's convinced you're bad but knows nothing about you, maybe she'll second guess her preconceived notions. It happens.
Thanks, Rosie. Thanks for the 1999. There is no way. First of all, she won't talk. And second of all, nothing I say will convince her that I'm like okay or whatever, because her moral standard is just different from mine. That's why she tolerates people like fucking Hasan glazing Houthis, who she even admitted have like what instances of anti-Semitism, but has a problem with like me because I what.
It is projected.
She couldn't remember. If you ask this person, can you just remember like one single thing Lonerbox actually said about the conflict? Like just one opinion that he gave about the aid or civilians or proportionality or the history of the conflict? Just any like just in a sentence or 2 sentences. She would not know what to tell you. You understand that, right? She would have no fucking idea. Her head would explode. She wouldn't be able to tell you a single thing from recall. She just has a vibe. That's it. She would have no examples. That's how these people work, okay? They are vibe merchants. They are here with Christmas tidings and Christmas vibes, okay? For the entire year.
I think that I will again make double what I make in a normal month. I also forgot to mention, and this is where I'll end off my last thing, is my personal leaving point. Which again does not contribute well to Ethan's claims. Aaron Bushnell last year, or earlier this year, might have been January. I'll actually look up the date of that. February 25th of this year. So this is when I checked out. Aaron Bushnell self-immolated. Self-immolation means to set yourself on fire and protest. Ethan Klein, and I was actually a member at this time because what happened was when the BBTV fallout happened in 2023, Ethan Klein was talking about it on his members' videos. So I signed up for the membership. And then I forgot that I had it. And then I tried to cancel it a couple times on my PC and it wouldn't work. It would just refresh and I would still be joined and it wouldn't work. Months and months and months. I would just randomly remember because I was told that you couldn't cancel it on your phone. One day I tried on my phone and it instantly worked. Right after this Aaron Bushnell stuff. When I was like, you know what? I'm done with everything. I'm unsubscribing the whole 9. Because of the comments that Ethan Klein was making, essentially mocking Aaron Bushnell's efforts and the impact that he had. And if I could find
what efforts, what impact? Stop doing this. This is so gross. Stop encouraging this behavior. Like, stop trying to act as if this achieved anything or was going to achieve anything. What are you talking about? Efforts. Aaron Bushnell. Hang on. Is this right? Where's the... Just to double check, I've got the right source for this. Washington Post. Jesus. Sorry. Aaron Bushnell, who supported October 7th, by the way, who denied that Israelis were civilians. Why are you... What efforts? This guy wasn't an activist, okay? He wasn't like a guy who was just concerned about human suffering. He was upset that Hamas were losing. He was upset that Hamas wasn't winning. That October 7th didn't last a bit longer. Like, why would you validate this shit? That this guy was a crazy person. Okay, like that's it. He was just a crazy person, and acting as if there was anything like glorious or anything poetic or like moral about this behavior. Like, no, this is just a crazy person. It's a crazy person who set himself on fire, right?
The clip on that I'll insert it here.
My first reaction is this. It was absolutely insane how he like stood the whole time. That was crazy. I don't even know how that's humanly possible. Again, not to put this uncouth, but he's a champ at burning alive. I mean, that sounds bad, but he did it really good. Does that bad sound bad? We have to make levity of things. Does that sound bad that he was really good? I mean that as a compliment. What the f are you guys angry about, you weirdos? What did I do? My God, stop. They're just saying, all I hear is Ethan no, but I don't understand what I've even said.
The disrespect.
It's not even that the disrespect. Okay.
Of that effort and the mocking of the concept and the harshness and lack of humanity really highlighted to me those feelings I had acquired from those other instances and the core of where I felt like they all came. And that was my end point.
Yeah,
that was,
you shouldn't encourage people for doing that. You shouldn't suggest that this is a strategy that will help and that anyone should think that if I do this, I will get reverence and martyrdom as well. Yeah, you shouldn't actually be. Where's the disrespect? Is this guy a fucking angel to you? Again, this guy fucked around. In terms of the response to him, I'm sorry. Like, if you're a piece of shit in life, people are going to treat you like a piece of shit in death as well. I don't even know if he was like a bad person. He was clearly fucking like he was unwell. He was sad.
It was when I said, you know what, I'm having a lot of cognitive dissonance about this, and I don't appreciate this content. I don't appreciate how it makes me feel. I don't appreciate the impact that it has. So with that, I'm going to conclude, and hopefully my address doesn't end up on Reddit. This is just my nuanced conversation on my feelings about it, and I hope that you appreciated it. And I'll see you when I see you. Bye.
If you support Hamas unaliving civilians for supporting H, do you have support the Allies' strategic bombings? Okay, I'm going to pretend that was a properly worded sentence, but what, the bombings of German civilian cities? No, I don't support that. No. Like, targeting civilians generally is like, you never do it. It's against the rules, okay? Civilian collateral, different story. No, you don't target civilians. It's bad. Even people at the time knew it was bad. Like, after Dresden happened and after Hamburg happened, like, people, I think Churchill thanked every single military division of the British Army, apart from Bomber Command. He left them out of the victory speech because they were so controversial. Yeah, if you're targeting the civilians with the intention of terrorizing the population into surrendering quicker and demoralizing, yeah, you target civilians, yeah, that's a bad thing. You're not supposed to do that. It's bad. It's very bad. Oh, well. What a awful fucking video. 98k views. Well done.